Greetings, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Barbara Dean Franklin Show, Real Talk, Real People. I am your host, Barbara Dean Franklin, and today I have the pleasure of sitting with my friend, Kelly Garrett. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Well, many of you may have seen that Yolanda Davis and Alana Davis were going to be my guests today, and we were going to talk about sickle cell awareness. Well, Alana had to be rushed to emergency, and Kelly graciously agreed to sit in with me because your son Chandler also has sickle cell.
Yes, thank you.
So again, I want to thank you, Kelly, for coming out. I know that, you know, this may be a difficult time for you, but you are such a blessing to so many people, and people need to hear your story. They need to see your smile, and they need to know that there is strength, you know, even in the midst of pain.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Kelly and I worked at AT&T, but we never seemed to have ever crossed paths. We're Facebook friends. We sometimes are in the same building, but not been able to see each other. But today, I got a chance to wrap my arms around you, and I'm grateful for that. You are the pro tem mayor for Lathrup Village.
Yes.
And there are so many other things that you are doing. Let's talk a little bit about sickle cell. You said that you have the sickle cell trait.
I have the trait. I can't remember exactly when I found out I had the trait, but it's been for a very long time. Like I was telling you before, I recall being in middle school and us talking about genetics and how genetics affect you. And I recall, I don't know if it was then that I learned that I had the trait or not, but as I told you, both parents have to have the trait, and then you have a 1 in 4 chance to have a child that has sickle cell. And I said, I can't win the lottery, but I can win the fact that my son will have sickle cell.
All right.
So that's how it happens, and I think that that's one of the things that I'm pushing for. When people get together, you get tested for other diseases and things like that. Sickle cell trait, find out if you have a sickle cell trait is important, because this is a disease that not everybody can handle.
Right, and as I read up on it, and I was sharing with you that, you know, when I was younger, back in the 60s, I remember having a girlfriend who had sickle cell, and it was, all you heard was sickle cell anemia, you know, she was, but just her nose bled, you know, and that was all. I never remember her being in any pain. I never remember her ever having to go to the hospital. I do know that she had really bad nosebleeds. You know, they would stick the cotton up in her nose, and you know, that was the gist of it. But now sickle cell anemia, there's sickle cell disease, there's sickle cell traits, and it's just like it's becoming more and more prevalent today that you hear a lot about it. I know it's not a disease that can be cured, but how can you be proactive in preventing the pain, or what are some of the signs, I guess, of sickle cell? When
I don't think that Chandler actually had a lot of pain episodes. He has, or he had acute chest syndrome, and as I was telling you, that's the one that most children or most people die from, is from the acute chest, and that's just from what I've read about it. The one thing that when Chandler was little, and let me back up, I was blessed for the fact that I did work at AT&T or Ameritech, Michigan Bell. I can't remember which one I worked for at that point. But because of the insurance that I had and the insurance that the UAW provides for my ex-husband, we were able to get tested in vitro. So at 7 weeks, I found out that I was pregnant with a sickle cell baby, basically. And so many things, that this is why I'm in so many causes, is that I recall that phone call from his doctor, or from my doctor, saying he does have sickle cell, and well, you're having a boy and he's going to have sickle cell. You can terminate your pregnancy. You need to think it through whether or not you want to have this, because sickle cell children, it's a lot of responsibility. So I'm happy that I had a choice, which that's a whole different show, I'm sure. I had the choice of whether or not this is something I wanted to take on. And then the fact is, of course, I said I would never, you know, terminate Chandler, but I also declared and decreed over my body, over his body, that he would never be affected by sickle cell. So, I mean, it's, again, going back to the fact that I think that more people need to know whether or not they have a trait. I've never been affected by anything. At least I don't believe I've been affected by anything from having a trait. Chandler would come with pain, would be like in his knees. I never put 2 and 2 together, believe it or not, because I'm thinking that I remember kids' hands being swollen. That's the gist of it. But the pain in the knees, but then he started having pain in his chest. Then it's almost the way that he reacted to it is like somebody having a heart attack. He grabs his chest and like falls over, or he grabs his stomach and falls over, and you're just kind of like, you know. Another good thing is the earlier you know, the more you can do. So he was on penicillins from, I can't remember, infancy till 5 years old. Wow. Every single day had to take penicillin, and that keeps all of any type of virus away from, because if they catch diseases or catch the flu, it's hard. It's very hard to fight it off.
Now, I know that when they talk about sickle cell, they say a normal blood cell is round or whatever.
Round and spongy, and it's flexible.
And then the sickle, you know, I'm researching because I want to know,
right.
You know, I want to be able to speak a little intelligently about what I'm talking about. So the sickle, but you know, it goes all through, you know.
It's like, okay, so if you think of a tube, your red blood cells, which carry your oxygen on top of it, flows through your veins or arteries. Don't get me to figure that part out.
Right.
And they can go through everything easily because they're spongy and they're soft.
Okay.
Sickle blood cells obviously don't carry oxygen. And if you think of a sickle, which I guess I'm going old school, the way that they used to cut down weeds,
right.
Or if you think of like a crescent moon, that's what a sickle cell looks like. But they're hard and sticky, so they stick together.
Okay. And
so
they
block the circulation, they block airflow, and so what we were talking about also, this time of the year, which I was thinking, why is September sickle cell month? And now I'm starting to get it, because this is when the weather changes for us, at least for Michigan.
Right.
And when it gets cold outside, or when a sickle cell child person or sickler is cold, that's when your blood gets thicker, it moves slower, and this is when your sickle cells, the sickled blood cells, will stick together and cause the problem.
Now, you know, when I talked to Alana this morning, and she said Alana was in a lot of pain. Alana's 20 years old now, and she's had, you know, sickle cell for a very long time, and so it's like she's always experiencing some episode. Now that you know that Chandler has the sickle cell, are there things that you could do, like with his regulating his eating habits, and you know, making sure that he's not stressed, or you know, I mean, I'm sure he's in activities, you know, footballs or different things like that. What do you do to try and prevent him from having those episodes?
Well, he would never be in football.
Okay.
That's that's something that they can't do trauma to their bodies. They cannot, even though he signed up for it, and I had to go and tell the coach it's never going to happen.
Okay.
You know, he can play basketball to an extent because he gets winded faster.
Right.
He can play baseball just fine. Now, for his diet, when he was little, I really didn't regulate it as much, but as I started doing more research about sickle cell, I found that fatty foods, fast food, causes problems. And I said, now go figure, the sickle cell anemia is prevalent in the black community, so I'm wondering, yeah, of course that goes. Yeah, fast food, and the way that our diet is, and you know, fried foods, things like that. So with him, he gets more greens as much as I can possibly get him to eat, more protein, and then he has to stay hydrated. They have to stay hydrated because there's nothing worse to be in the ER with your child and they can't find a vein because he's dehydrated. Wow. It is, I mean, it's a nightmare. It's something that, for a mother, for a father, and my mom was there, and his other grandmother was there, it's a nightmare to watch. Wow. You know.
And I'm sure that it is. And really, I really was hoping that Alana and Yolanda could be here, and I definitely wanted you on the phone. This, you know, but talking about God having a ram in the bush,
right?
You know? And I really thank you. I mean, because this was just an early conversation, and then you know, you showed up, you know, coming up out of the house, but. Just from that 20-year-old perspective, here's a young girl who should be out, you know, living her life, living her dream. I know she was working and, you know, things like that. But from a baby, she's been like, it seems like she's always had this problem, you know. So you know, so and then to have a mother's perspective to watch your child be in pain, and there's nothing that you can do. You know, how do you, you know, encourage Chandler when he's going through something
well,
like
one
that?
thing that I don't like, and this is just my personal perspective, is I don't like all the drugs that they put our kids on.
Okay.
And the one thing that I did read back in, you know, 60s maybe, back in the day, is that sicklers became junkies.
Okay.
Because you go to the hospital, they give you morphine, and I had to put a stop to that immediately, because the first thing they would do once they did the IV is they hooked them up with morphine. And it's like, no, let's do the step up process. Let's not go just straight from he's in pain to morphine. Because then what happened with some sicklers, from what I've read, is that then they're turned away at the hospital, because then they look like, you know, oh, they're not really in pain.
They just want to come for the morphine.
Yeah, and so then, as a doctor, I can understand you have to regulate it, but as a sickler, and I know what they go through, that has to be hard to try to explain your pain to someone, because it goes from 0 to 60 in a matter of seconds, where you could be talking, the next minute you're out of it.
It's amazing that you would say that, because I remember reading a post like maybe a couple of weeks ago where Yolanda was saying, you know, her daughter is so strong that she's like, you know, I don't even want the morphine. You know, I don't, that she was, you know, trying to deal with the pain on her own, you know, because maybe the morphine, I don't know if that even makes them sick.
It's not that it makes them sick, but, you know, we overcome certain medication also, and that's one thing. I don't want him, and I can't think of the word right now, where you get immune to, you know, on one level. So Chandler and I, one thing that we do is we do a lot of breathing techniques, and it is where just trying to keep him calm, because I'm not someone that takes medication. I have to be very, very sick for me to take medication, and I'm trying to teach him the same thing, because you want the medication to work when you need it to work, not just automatically being put on it. And one thing, and I would love to meet Yolanda at some point, you have to be your kid's advocate at whatever age. And it warms my heart to hear of a 20-year-old, because I don't know a lot of older people with sickle cell. But you have to be their advocate. The medication is one thing that I'm just not for. Like, they have a new drug, newer, which is called hydroxyurea. And that's supposed to reduce the amount of acute chest syndrome episodes, and that's where you basically have your pain in your chest, and it mimics kind of like flu-like symptoms, asthmatic almost, but I won't let my son go on it. Only because my girlfriend's children is on it, but she seems to still be in the hospital. Maybe she's not having acute chest, but my son hasn't had an acute chest episode. I think the last time was in 2008 without hydroxyurea. So there's no reason
to get on.
And they ask me on a regular basis when I see him, are you going to put him on yet? Which his doctor finds it funny now. And you're like, ask her, will she put her kid on it? And watch what she's going to say. I'm like, no, it's a form of chemotherapy. You can't tell me what's going to happen to him when he gets to be an adult. You can't tell me if he's going to be able to have kids. You can't tell me, you know, if he's going to have an aversion to, say, you know, God forbid he gets cancer, rather than not, he has an immunity to chemotherapy. So I'll say no.
We'll take our chances. When you talk about breathing techniques, you know, naturally I'm thinking labor pain, and I know how much pain that can be. So, and that's a good, you know, a good example. So you do that with him.
I have to, and see, and what I tell him is that, you know, I'm only 5'2", maybe weigh 125 pounds, but he was 9'7". And he was a huge baby, And I told him, I said, I went through everything.
Like 9'7". I'm thinking like, okay, he's not that tall. He weighed 9 pounds 7 ounces when you had him. Wow.
Yes. It was nothing. All right. I still
breathe.
Breathe. I still remember that, of course.
Breathe.
But going through the labor pains, I remember that I wouldn't take any drugs for the longest, and then once it got to an intense part, that's when I started taking the drug. I had to, or else I was going to go crazy. But I tell him that, because I'm like, take it as far as you can, and then we'll do the drugs, but we're going to step you up. Let's start with Motrin before we even go to morphine, you know, because they want to take you there quickly. For me, it is there's a strength that comes from, I don't know, because what happens is when they're in the hospital, at least for me, when Chandler is in the hospital, I am a tower of strength. I can handle whatever. I know I am Beaumont's nightmare parent on their floor because I know what I know. Like when they tell me stuff, I always have my laptop out in front of me and I research it. And the doctor says, what are you doing? I'm looking up exactly what you're saying because you're not going to put anything past me. But when it's all over, I know that's where my breakdown comes from because it's like you're sitting there the entire time just like, you know, because you just don't know what to do. And when it comes to Chandler, people that know me know that I would move mountains for him. And I've been very blessed by the jobs I have because I don't even care what is going on with my job. I will drop it to be with him. Yep, there is no thought process. And then, you know, once he's in the hospital, there's nothing you can do but sit there, which I will. Kind of jobs I've had, I've always brought my laptops with me where I can try to do some work, but don't push it.
Exactly. But this is most important.
Absolutely.
Most important.
Absolutely.
And you should be there. You know, you want to be there for your kid and, you know, to do everything that you can. One thing that you posted that really caught my attention, and that's with this ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And you put out there, anybody that has sickle cell, do not do the Ice Bucket Challenge. Let's talk about that because how many people probably don't even think about that?
Well, it was quite funny because I don't know if Chandler was getting prepared to do it. And I'm kind of like, you know, what were you doing? Oh, I've been challenged to the ALS, the challenge. And I freaked out on him, which he didn't get it at all. I said, are you out of your mind so we can go to emergency afterwards? And he was like, what do you mean? That would be such a shock to your body that anything that's traumatic to them, which I have to tell you another story why we ended up in an emergency, but anything traumatic to them and to their bodies will cause them to go right into crisis.
Wow, wow. So are you going to tell me about when you went ziplining?
No, and what I try not to tell people was my son he's a boy, obviously, and he's grown into being a boy. He decided to, he went up to the school and decided to do a backflip off the roof of the shed where they have all the mats for football. And decided to do a backflip, and he was going to land on his feet on this mat. Well, he didn't. He landed on his back, which caused immediate trauma to his body. He couldn't breathe. Ended up in the hospital because you're usually in the hospital when it comes to a sickle cell crisis for 3 days. They do a test that has to be checked every 24 hours. So ambulance is called and everything, you know. And for me, I wait. It's like I'm in the bushes just waiting. They get his breathing under, you know, control, give him oxygen. I think he had to get blood that day. And as soon as he got stable, I'm like, do you know how dumb that just was? And that's why I have to keep comparing things. So I'm like, anything traumatic to your body will cause you to go into a crisis. Not a maybe. This, you know, it is a maybe, but it's going to make you go into crisis. You need to stop it, you know. And then when we went ziplining, he was not hydrated. That's what happened with that. And then it was too strenuous. And I mean, he's 25 feet in the air, screaming at me, saying, I can't make it. And I'm like,
what do you want me to do?
There's nothing I could do at that point. And I'm like, please, you have to walk across. And, you know, I prayed that he could get across. I said, if you fall out that tree.
All right, then we know. We definitely know.
There's something else.
I mean, there's no comparison, but I remember taking my children to the amusement park, and I do not do roller coasters. And I told them that I do not do roller coasters, and they talked me into doing a roller coaster. So I had my youngest daughter behind me with her father. But as we're going up and then going down, she's screaming, "Ma, Ma, Ma!" She's with her dad, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know why you're calling me, because there's nothing I could do, and I'm up here by myself, and I'm afraid. But I'm glad that Chandler is okay, and I'm glad that you are his biggest advocate. And you know, as I think about you and your strength, and I follow you, and I watch you, and I listen to you, and God is just blessing you. His hand is just all up in your business.
Thank you.
And I just hope you
okay, because you know, it's still a little emotional.
I know it. I know it. You know,
you.
I know that you are, but your strength, you know, even in the midst of your pain, you're strong. And I just need you to know how strong you are. Sometimes I know we don't realize our own strength. We don't realize what we do for other people. But you encourage me each and every day. I look to you. I look to you.
Really?
You know, I do. I do. I do. I look to you for strength. What I want you to do right now, because there's somebody that's out there, they could be going through sickle cell, they could be going through suicide, they're going through something.
Right.
And I need you to just look into the camera and just encourage somebody with all that you've been through on the last week or so.
Okay.
Talk to somebody from your heart.
Well, just like what Barbara's saying, and I'm going to be transparent with everyone, is that my nephew, who was like my other son, committed suicide 2 weeks ago. It is the most traumatic experience I've gone through. I'm still dealing with it. And then I have a son that I worry about every day, or I shouldn't say worry about, I'm concerned about every day, because he does have sickle cell, and anything can cause him to go into a crisis. That means that if your child is sick, if your child sneezes on him and has, a strep throat, you're going to cause my child to go into the ER. So those are the things that I deal with on a daily basis. Where I'm drawing my strength from is the Lord. That's all that I have. Then also, which I'm transparent, this whole year has been like a nightmare to me. I've gone through a divorce. I divorced my very best friend, and I'm dealing with these things alone. And again, I now realize, and I realized it today because the Lord sent me a butterfly next to my window to let me know that I am resting in his hands. And the only thing that stays in my mind, and as I walked up to my nephew's coffin, was, my ways are not your ways.
Amen.
My thoughts are not your thoughts.
Yes.
So you have to draw on that. If it's time for you to cry, then you cry. I have laid out on the floor screaming and crying before, and once it's over, it's over. You just have to keep moving. The Lord has you, and if you don't believe in Jesus Christ or whoever your higher being is, draw on that. Understand that you are more than a conqueror, and that's what I have to say every day and waking up, is that I can do this. This is another day that I'm going to make it through. I'm going to make it through. That's who I am. I am a woman of strength. I am a woman of faith.
And a woman of character.
Oh, I thank you.
And of great character. And that's something that I posted just the other day. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself.
Oh, yes.
You know, Sherry Danyogo gave me the praise challenge, you know. And so I went and I was just looking at the tree, a big oak tree that's planted, you know, in my backyard. And so I have to say to myself, some days I look in the mirror, I'm an overcomer. You know, I am, you know, rich, you know, I'm prosperous, you know, I'm a giver. You know, some things I don't even feel about myself that I have to say to myself over and over again. We have to be strong. And the one thing that we must do is really be there for one another.
Absolutely.
You know, when I see you down or whatever you're going through, I'm going to inbox you.
You've been great.
You know, I'm going to inbox you and say, hey, are you okay? You understand? And then you have to be real with people, you know, and transparent with people, because I don't know what you need if you don't reach out to me. There are people who really want to help. You understand? They really love you. They really get the thing that's called love, that unconditional love, that really have a heart to love on people. I have that heart. And so if there's anything, you know, that I can do for you, you know, other than what I've been doing, you know, definitely I want you to reach out to me. I thank you for coming in, taking the time out your schedule to come and show up. Get up, take a bath, put on clothes.
And then brush my teeth for you.
And I so appreciate it. You know, 30 minutes is never enough time. And I had talked to you before about doing a talk show, you know, like maybe 3 or 4 of us women get together and just talk about some issues. And so that's still, think about what that looks like.
I would love it.
Think about what
that looks like. We got a lot of stuff to do.
Okay. And when that happens, I definitely want you to be a part of it. All right. So I am going to end the show the way that I always do, thanking you for tuning in, and hopefully I brought something to you that will be a blessing. I'm going to say to each and every one of you, love on one another, be there for one another. We never know what somebody else is facing each and every day. So we bring all of the drama, the, you know, negativity and things to people who do not need your negativity. Keep it to yourself. I'm going to say, from my beating heart to your beating heart, I love you. You understand? Okay.